Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hi, everybody. So welcome back. We took a 2 weeks break. I hope our memory is still fresh. I will do a quick recap of the previous Perek before we start this Perek. Last Perek was Perek Gimel. Perek Gimel is, I would say, the culminating point of the first 2 prakim. So we have the first 2 prakim are a progression to go into, to prepare us to what is coming in Perek Gimel. We see all the background of Shmuel's family, how special his mother is, how much effort, emotion, and dignity and devotion, most of all, she put into bringing his neshama into the world. And slowly we see how Shmuel is growing until we reach that culmination, that Shmuel reaches the level that he can have his first nevuah. So in Perek Gimel, we have the entire situation described to us, and we explained that it was very rare that we are exposed to the first nevuah of a Navi. It doesn't happen for all the Nevi'im. And we have here the very detailed description, and we compared it to the description of Moshe by the burning bush. That Moshe also, we describe how he has his first apparition of Hashem, his first revelation of Hashem, and how he also doesn't realize that Hashem speaking to him at the beginning, and he has great news. Hashem tells him, you're going to be the redeemer of the Jewish people. And Shmuel, in a sense, is being told, you are the next leader. No one was having a nevuah in his time, and he is the one receiving it, to the point that Eli didn't even suspect that he was receiving a nevuah. So he is giving the message that he's going to be the next leader of the Jewish people. All right. And we heard that by contrast with all the caring that Hashem puts into cautioning Shmuel into the nevuah, the message itself was being hit by a truck. He was being given the news of calamity, destruction, curses, punishments. It was very negative. It was a very negative first exposure to nevuah. But since the moment that Shmuel received the nevuah, it became more common. He allowed for the world to absorb nevuah. So other people were able to receive a nevuah as a result for him being so worthy. We made a contrast between the beginning of the Perek that started in darkness, and in spiritual darkness, in physical darkness that happens at night, and the lower level that the description of Eli's sons that were not behaving properly in the Mishkan, and the end that is like the nevuah becomes widespread. People respect Shmuel. Shmuel grows in age and in stature. So there was a great progress into the state of the Jewish people and the state of Shmuel between the beginning and the end of the Perek. So now we are in Perek Daled. Perek Daled is going to bring to us the actualization of Shmuel's nevuah. All the nevuah that Eli and Shmuel received, Eli didn't receive the nevuah, Eli received the message from Hashem through a Navi himself. The message that Eli and Shmuel received regarding the punishment that Eli's family is going to receive is going to happen in this Perek. So let's be prepared. This is a pretty grave Perek. It's about destruction, death, a lot of death. In short. All right, we are Perek Dalet Pasuk Aleph. So we'll do as we do usually. We'll go through the psukim, explain them briefly, and then go back to analyze it deeper. Vayehi devar Shmuel lekol Israel, and the word of Shmuel was for all Israel. Vayetze Israel likrat Pelishtim, and Israel went out towards the Pelishtim. Who are the Pelishtim? We never spoke about them until now. All right, let's keep that in mind. The surprise will not last too long. Look at this. La milchama. They go out to war. So straight up, if we have the Pelishtim, usually it's a negative situation. We don't have positive interactions with the Pelishtim ever in the entire Tanakh. It doesn't happen. The Pelishtim are a tribe of people that live in the southeast of Eretz Israel, where we have the Gaza Strip now. That's where the Pelishtim used to live. Ashkelon, exactly. So the Gaza Strip and even a little bit more up north. So they would go up to Ashdod even. Ashdod is a city of Pelishtim. And that's where they live, in that strip of land close to the sea, but in the south of Eretz Israel. They're always there to create trouble for Bnei Israel. There is no positive interactions. So when we see the word Pelishtim, la milchama makes sense. Right? What?
There's still a strip there, right?
There's still a strip that we call it the Gaza Strip today still. Yeah, technically. Vayachanu, and they camped, hal ha'even ha'ezer, on Even ha'ezer, we're going to explain that. Upelishtim chanu be'afek, and the Pelishtim camped in Afek. We have a new situation that we were not exposed to since the beginning of the Sefer, that we have a war. Now the war here is, there are things that we know, things that we don't know. We know that we have a war between Bnei Israel and the Pelishtim. We know where they are. They each camp in a different place. The Bnei Israel camp in a place called Even Ha'ezer, the rock of help. And the Pelishtim camp in Afek. Afek comes from the word Ofek. Ofek is a horizon. So it's a place where we assume they would have a clear view of the battlefield. So it would be a strategic place. What would I assume from a place named Even Ha'ezer, the rock of help? That Hashem is going to help them. So I'm assuming that there is something positive that's going to come, because there's that place that is called the rock of help. So either it's a monument that they named after a help of Hashem that has come, that will come, that they're hoping for. There's a positive note in the air. So we're hoping for that. However, what we do not know is who started this war.
Can I ask a question further?
Yeah.
In this, there's like this sama
Mm.
over here.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I don't have it. So it is interesting. I will in the middle of the pasuk. Yes. And I read it correct. And yes. And I read actually that in some prints they have it and in some prints they don't. Yes. That according to some opinions, it's a separate parsha. It belongs to the previous Perek. Vayehi devar, I'm going to address it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in some prints, we'll have a samech saying that the first part of the pasuk is not related to the rest of the story. And in some prints, it's part of the same pasuk. However, I still have an etnachta, which is the punctuation that tells me there is a strong comma in the middle of the pasuk. So there is a stop in my reading. Vayehi devar Hashem lechol Yisrael. Pause. Vayetze Yisrael likrat Pelishtim. As if there is a separation between the two facts. And I was going to address that right after, and I will keep it aside. We see here that we do not know who is going to war against who started this war, what prompted this war. However, I will point out that it says, Vayetze Israel likrat Pelishtim. Bnei Israel went out towards the Pelishtim, assuming that they are the ones initiating the war. There's nothing that prompted it. They decided as a nation to go to war against the Pelishtim. And we'll go with that opinion. Because this, according to the Psukim, that's what makes sense. Now the question is, who encouraged them to go to war? It would sound, if I would read the pasuk in one shot, it would sound that the Bnei Israel going to war is a consequence of Vayehi devar Shmuel lechol Israel, that there was the word of Shmuel with all Israel. So if Shmuel spoke to all Israel, then they went to war, meaning he told them to go to war. So there are two opinions here. There's one opinion that will say, yes, Shmuel told them to go to war because he received the message from Hashem that they should go to war. However, so it's a good question. Because we still have his image of he's a young boy who received his nevuah, right? Yeah, we have that picture. So at the end of Pasuk Gimel, of Perek Gimel, if you look in Pasuk Yutet, it says Vayigdal Shmuel, and Shmuel grew. So there's a number of years that have passed between the nevuah and the moment that it happened. Happened in consecutive parakim, but in years, we assume that there's about 20 years that actually passed between the moment that he received his nevuah and the moment that the war happened, because he was already an adult. We'll see the event will go rather quickly from now on, and we'll see that we'll meet them and they're adults, they have children. We're like, when did that happen? And we assume that this is when it happened, when he grew up, he became an adult, and it happened about 20 years later. All right, so there are two opinions. Either we have Shmuel told them you should go to war because that's what I heard from Hashem, but Hashem did not guarantee any victory. There is no guarantee of victory. There's no message about victory. By contrast, with all the previous wars that we have in the previous Sepharim, the previous two books of Yehoshua and Shoftim, every time Bnei Israel go to war, they go with a guarantee, explicit guarantee, that they will win their enemies. We have no story of a defeat from Bnei Israel because Hashem guaranteed their victory every time. We have stories of Bnei Israel being oppressed by their enemies, but being oppressed means that they gave them very high taxes, they made strong rules against them, they humiliated them. But there was no actual fighting, there was no actual wars between the opposing countries. There was big threats. Here we'll see how it becomes different. So one opinion is that Shmuel did tell them to go to war, but with no guarantee. And another opinion is, no, this is a general opening to say the word of Shmuel was with the people in general. Shmuel had a say in things in general matters. People were referring to Shmuel to make decisions usually. People respected him for his opinion. But it is not to say that here specifically Shmuel told them specific about going to war. So there are those two opinions. It's very difficult to decide for one or the other. They're both equally valid, especially considering the following events. All right. So why would Bnei Israel decide all of a sudden to go to war against the Philistines? So some explain that it could be that because Shmuel helped the people improve spiritually, the Jewish people felt that now they were in a better spiritual position. And because they're in a better spiritual position, Hashem will help them into their battle. So if they go to war against the Philistines, to regain possible territories that the Philistines took from them in previous battles, then Hashem will help them because they're better than they used to be, because Shmuel helped them being more spiritual. All right. Now that we have this background, let's see what happens next. Pasuk Bet. Vayarchu Pelishtim, and the Pelishtim set up Likrat Israel, towards Israel. So they prepare themselves for the war. Vatitosh milchama, and the war exploded. Vayinagef Israel lifnei Pelishtim, and Bnei Israel took a blow from the Pelishtim. Vayaku, and they hit them. Bama'aracha, on the battlefield. Basade, in the field. Ke'arba'at alafim ish, about 4,000 men. So here we have, for the first time since Bnei Israel entered the land, a casualty of 4,000 deaths at war, in a war that would be against a non-Jewish enemy. We have a story that there were Jewish soldiers that died at the end of Sefer Shoftim, when we had the civil war between the tribe of Binyamin and all the other tribes, when there was the story of the concubine in the valley that we explained that they wanted to get rid of the entire tribe. There was a war, and there are 22,000 Jews that died. But it was a war between Jews, which makes it worse in a sense. Here, to have a non-Jewish enemy come and kill 4,000 Jewish soldiers was something unheard of. Bnei Israel themselves, they were shocked. They were like, we didn't know it was an option for us to lose the war. Pasuk Gimel, Vayavo ha'am el ha'machane. So the people came back to their camp. Vayomru ziknei Israel, and the Zikanim, the elders, they have to make a decision. They say, Lama negafanu Hashem hayom lifnei Pelishtim. Why did Hashem hit us today in front of the Pelishtim? Meaning it's definitely Hashem's fault that we lost the war. But why did that happen? So they didn't really dwell on why did that happen, but they came with a plan of action. So their plan of action is as follows. Nikcha elenu mishilo will take with us, for us, from Shiloh, et Aaron berit Hashem, the Aaron. Veyavo bekirbenu, and he will come among us. So who will come among us? The Aaron. Veyoshienu, and he will save us. Mikaf oivenu, from the hand of our enemies. That's a great plan. They're thinking to themselves, one second, we took a massive blow from our enemy, which is something very strange. Let's think back in our history when we had a very strong enemy. They think. So, oh, 1 second. Jericho was a city so strong, it was fortified, like the wall of the city was like 7 walls, one after the other. There was no way to conquer that city. And you know what Bnei Israel did? They took the Aaron with them in the war. Why did they take the Aaron with them? Because Yehoshua received specific instructions to take the Aaron, to circle the city 7 times. It was a completely spiritual war. There was nothing physical about that war. Why? Because Hashem guided them in how to fight that battle. Here, Hashem doesn't guide them in any way. It is their assumption that if they bring the Aaron with them, the Aaron will help them win the war. Because the Aaron is so kadosh that there are a few options. Either the Aaron is so kadosh, so the presence of Hashem will be with them, so Hashem will have mercy on them. Or because the Aaron is so kadosh, the Pelishtim will run away from it because it will be too intense for them to withstand the holiness. Or the Aaron itself has special powers to make the enemies run away. Where did they take that from? They took that from a pasuk in the Torah. And that pasuk is a pasuk that we say on Shabbos. I don't know if during the week we say, yeah, every time we open the Aaron, every time we open the Aaron HaKodesh in Shul, we say a special pasuk. And what do we say? We say, Vayehi bin Soa Aaron. And it was when the Aaron was traveling in the desert. Vayomer Moshe, Moshe said, Kuma Hashem rise, Veyanusu misanecha mipanecha, and your enemies will run away before you. What better tool do we have than the Aaron to make the enemies run away? Sounds like a good plan. We agree?
Mhm.
Excellent strategy. Pasuk Dalet, Vayishlach ha'am Shiloh. So the people sent a messenger to Shiloh. Vayis'u misham, and they carry from there et Aaron berit Hashem, the Aaron of the covenant of Hashem tzevakot. Remember the word Hashem tzevakot? That Hannah said for the first time. Yoshev ha'keruvim, Hashem who dwells on the keruvim. Vesham, and there in the Mishkan, in Shiloh, Shne bnei Eli, they were the 2 sons of Eli, im Aaron berit Elokim, with the Aaron of the covenant of Hashem, Chofni uPinchas, the 2 sons of Eli, Chofni uPinchas.
Wait, but shouldn't they be asking Shmuel?
Oh, good point.
Is Eli still alive?
Yes.
Good question.
But he is.
He is.
That's interesting because
Yes.
the first Nebuah,
Yes,
Shmuel was still a young boy.
Correct.
Now it's coming to happen, the actual Nebuah.
yes,
And you were saying this is like 20 years or something later.
yes,
So Shmuel got that, prophecy.
way ahead of time.
But think about all this lapse of time and it didn't happen. Now it's going to happen that day or that war. That's a long time to carry this prophecy.
It is. And also for Eli,
Getting to know.
he knows that it will happen.
Yeah.
because the nevuah came twice. It's not even like he received one message. He heard the message twice. He knows it will happen, he just doesn't know when. We'll see. It is difficult. Now, we have here Bnei Israel come to Shiloh and they pick up the Aaron. I'm not gonna stop on here now. We're gonna come back to it after. They pick up the Aaron, and who is with the Aaron? Hofni and Pinchas.
And they're the ones who like say, okay, sure, no problem, take it.
Do they?
I mean, it doesn't sound like it, but like somebody has to allow them to take it.
It could be. That is, so
No.
it is. So you're right. Somebody has to allow them. So what happens is that Bnei Israel, they are at war. Eli knows that they're at war. And they come back in a hurry. Yeah, the Skinim, they said, we have to bring the Aaron. We're taking the Aaron. We lost 4,000 men. We need to take the Aaron with it. They're like, who are we to say no at this point? Like, maybe you're right. Like, it sounds like maybe it's an idea. I don't know. I'm not sure. And Eli, so I said I didn't want to go into it, but Eli, he's very unsettled about letting the Aaron leave. Because we remember that Eli is someone who protects the Kedusha. His entire being is focused on the holiness and the presence of Hashem, more than he's even concerned about people. So for him to take the Aaron away from the Mishkan is a massive deal. So here what the Midrash says is that Eli tells his sons, hey, they're taking the Aaron to the battlefield. The Aaron is going to be out of the house for the first time. You go and protect the Aaron. Your mission as Kohanim is to protect the Aaron. You're going to make sure that nothing happens to it, even if it costs you your life, because that is your responsibility as Kohanim.
It was the first time, or you also thought about you?
Sorry?
I'm saying it was the first time you're doing that?
Yes, since Yericho, it's the first time that we have a record of them taking their own to war. Yeah.
And when they say like the Canaan, is
Yes.
it just the elderly people, or were they actually to different?
Good question. So when we speak about Zekanim, and that's where the contrast with Eli in the rebuke of Hashem was so strong, is that in general, when we talk about Zekanim, we talk about wise old people, like the guides of the generation. They're the advisors. Because of their old age, they deserve to be the advisors and the guides. So this is their status.
Well, if they have Rosh Hashanah,
No, but they are the people that we refer to. They're the people who will be the decision makers.
Like the board.
Like the board. Yes, they're the board. But it's a good question that you asked, do they have a Ruach HaKodesh? Because they could have asked, can we ask for the Urim V'Tumim? Can we ask for the Kohen Gadol to ask, what should we do? What should happen now? How should we proceed? And they don't do those steps. And we'll see that this will bring, it sounds like very spontaneous. Okay, so what are we going to do? A little of a panic. There's a frenzy going on. And that decision of bringing the Aaron into the field is not a very thought out decision. It's a decision made in a hurry. It's a decision made in a hurry. So that's why there's no seeking advice about it. And even about the failure of the war. Usually, when Bnei Israel would lose a war, or Bnei Israel would be in a difficult situation, they would go and ask Hashem, what should we do? And here they don't. The Zekanim make the decision, boom, executive decision, we bring the Aaron. That's what needs to happen. And that's what they do. Now, how will people react when the Aaron comes? We see here from what I mentioned about Hofni and Pinchas that despite all the negative behavior that we described in the second Perek, we see here that they take their responsibility as the withholders of the sanctity of the nation. And they say, we are going to war with the Aaron. We are going to protect the Aaron into its journey. And they take that responsibility on, completely to their credit. And it was when the Aaron arrives, so the big star of the show, arrives to the camp. And all Bnei Israel started blowing the shofar, a big sound of the shofar. So strong that the earth trembled. You know, when there's a lot of noise, the ground shakes. So that's what it was like when the Aaron arrived. Massive party, yay, the Aaron finally arrived. We are safe, for sure. וישמעו פלישתים את כל התרועה. Even the Pelishtim heard the sound of shofar. ויאמרו, and they said, מכל התרועה הגדולה הזאת במחנה העברים. What is that big sound of shofar? They're not supposed to be partying. They just lost 4,000 men. What is this party sounds? וידעו, and then stood, כי אהרון השם בא אל המחנה. That the Aaron of Hashem came to the camp. They said, there's no way, there's nothing else that could happen. They just lost 4,000 people. What other reason could they have to rejoice? They took out their secret weapon. How do they react, the Pelishtim? Look at this. Vayir'u ha-Pelishtim. And look in the word Vayir'u, we have a dagesh in the yod. That shows me that it doesn't mean that the Pelishtim saw, it's the Pelishtim feared. Vayir'u ha-Pelishtim, the Pelishtim feared, they got scared. And what did they say? Ba'elokim el ha-machane. The God came to the camp. And they said, Vayomru, and they said, Oy lanu, for us, ki lo hayta kazot etmol shilsham. We were not in such a trouble for days and years. Etmol shilsham, like yesterday and the day before. We had never been in such big trouble. Now, the Bnei Israel brought their God to the camp. What are we going to do? Could they continue? Oy lanu, for us, mi yatzilenu mi yadei Elokim ha'adirim ele. Who is going to save us from this great God? Elehem ha'elokim ha'makim et Mitzrayim. This is the God who hit the Egyptians. Bechol makah b'midbar. With all the plagues and in the desert, the God that fought for them. We don't stand a chance. It is extremely strange to see that reaction coming from the Pelishtim, because it looks like the Pelishtim are very aware of the power of Hashem. So they see that the Bnei Israel brought the Aaron, and they take it very seriously. But their leaders, they don't go defeated. Pasuk tet. And the leaders of the Pelishtim tell them, Hitrasku, strengthen yourself. V'yu el hanashim Pelishtim. So imagine their chief, their generals, they come to them and say, you be a man, you be strong, we're gonna win this war. Don't be afraid, we're gonna do it. V'yu el hanashim Pelishtim, and you will be men Pelishtim. Pen ta'avdu la'ivrim. If we lose, you know what's the result? Ta'avdu la'ivrim, you will be the servants of the Hebrews. Ka'asher avdu lachem, just like you made them your servants previously. V'item le'anashim, you should be men, meaning strong men. V'nilchamtem, and you will go to war. You will fight. So with such powerful encouragement, they go and they say, you know what? We're going to give it our whole selves. We're going to do whatever we can to win this war. Yeah, it's true. They have their God with us and we're petrified of it. We're going to do everything we can. If we look at any story of Sefer Shoftim, that we have these descriptions of humongous armies that come and there is no end to it. And they have soldiers, it says, like the sand of the seashore, on the seashore. We don't see the end of the army coming. And the Bnei Israel, they come with like 10,000 men because Hashem wanted to make a statement that we don't have a large army. And it's not because of our large army that we win the war. There was never a doubt that Bnei Israel would win because they go with the power of Hashem. And Bnei Israel know that. They know that when Bnei Israel go to war, they go with the power of Hashem. Here we didn't hear a word from Hashem. Nothing. So look what happens. Vayilachamu Pelishtim, and the Pelishtim fought. Vayinagev Israel, and Israel was hit again. It doesn't say again. I say again. Vayanusu, and the people fled. Ish le'oalav, everyone to their tent. Meaning, the soldiers ran away from the battlefield, which is the greatest shame for soldiers to run away. Vatehi hamaka gedola meod, and the blow was very big. Vayipol mi Israel, and fell from Am Israel, 30,000 ragli, 30,000 foot soldiers. So imagine that.
Which was 15,000.
What?
15,000 soldiers.
No, a foot soldier, that means soldiers that are not on a horse or chariot. They're just going. No, it's not perfect. Not perfect. It means you have different categories of soldiers. This is the soldiers that go by foot. So they're the most vulnerable because they can't run away quickly. They lost 4,000 soldiers. They say, martial situation, we're going to bring secret weapon. It's going to save us. Second round, 30,000. What's going on? Now, we just hear about the 30,000 Jewish soldiers that just died in that war. Let's continue, it's not finished. Ve'aron Elokim nilkach. The Aaron that they brought to the battlefield was taken. Was taken by who? By the Pelishtim. Ushne b'nei Eli, and in the same pasuk. So that brings us back to the idea that I told you that they went to protect the Aaron. They gave their life for it. Ushne b'nei Eli metu. And the two sons of Eli died, Chofni u'Pinchas, together. By protecting the Aaron, trying to save it. So this is the end of the description of what happens on the battlefield. Disaster. We totally unexpected. It's not a story for our records. We have only stories of salvation. What happens? Now the people need to know what happened. How are the people going to know? Pasuk Yud Vayaratz ish Binyamin mehama'aracha. There is a man from Binyamin that ran from the battlefield. Vayavo Shiloh bayomahu, and he came to Shiloh on that day. Umadav keruim, and his clothes are torn. Ve'adama al rosho, and he has earth on his head. Sorry?
He's in mourning.
He is in mourning. Excellent point. So whoever sees him passing by knows that he's the bearer of bad news. Before he even opens his mouth, we know that there's something bad going on. Pasuk Yud Gimel. So he goes to Shiloh. We remember what is in Shiloh. In Shiloh we have the Mishkan. Now we know that Chofni and Pinchas are no longer in Shiloh. Who else is in Shiloh? Eli. Eli stayed in Shiloh. And Pasuk Shmuel. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayavo, and he came. Vehine, Eli yoshev ala kiseh. Eli is sitting on a chair. Yad derech metzapeh. He's on the way, on the road, metzapeh. He's waiting, he's expecting. He's waiting for someone to come from the battlefield, tell him what happened. Ki haya libo chared, because his heart was scared. Why was his heart scared? What would you think? Why would he be scared, Eli?
The Aaron and his sons.
For his sons are at war, the Aaron is at war, there's an entire nation at war. But Eli is scared al Aaron Elokim. The main concern of Eli is Aaron Elokim. Ve'ishba, and the man came, le'agid ba'ir, to tell the city. So the man doesn't come directly to Eli. The man comes to share with the entire city. There's Eli sitting there, but the man doesn't right away pay attention to him. Vatizak kol ha'ir, and the entire city cried. So we don't hear what he says to the people in the city, but probably the people of the city, just by seeing him, they see that something that happened. So right away they have a reaction, and they start crying. But Eli didn't see the man because Eli can't see well. Pasuk Yud Daled, Vayishma Eli. Eli heard. By opposition to see, Eli didn't see him. He didn't have that preparation. Vayishma Eli et kol hatzeaka. Eli heard the screaming, but he didn't know what it was, because it could be a screaming of joy or a screaming of pain, and he wouldn't know the difference. If it's from far, you can't really tell. Vayomer, and he said, what is this crowd noise that I hear? And the man rushed. Vayavo, vayaged le'Eli. And he came and he told Eli. The next pasuk, Ve'eli ben 98 shana. And Eli is now 98 years old. Ve'einav kama. And his eyes went up, meaning they gave up on him in a way. Ve'lo yachol lirot, and he couldn't see. So in the previous perek, we saw that his eyes were dark. So it's as if his vision was blurred. And now he cannot see at all anymore. Vayomer ha'ish el Eli, and now we hear what the man is going to say to Eli. Anochi haba min ha'ma'aracha. I am coming from the battlefield. Ve'ani min ha'ma'aracha nasti hayom. But don't think that I'm coming back as a victorious soldier. I fled from the battlefield. If you flee from the battlefield, it means that you're not leaving as a winner. So this is already a preparation for Eli, knowing there's something going on. Vayomer, and Eli says, Mehaya davar beni. What happened, my son? Tell me more details. Vayana mebaser, and the announcer told him. Vayomer, and he said, Nas Israel lifnei pelishtim. You think I'm the only one who ran away? I'm not. The entire Am Israel ran away before the Pelishtim. Vegam magefa gedola hayta ba'am. You think we ran away before we were hit? No, there was a big, magefa could be an epidemic, but like there was a big hit among the people, meaning a lot of people died. Vegam, now that he went from the global loss, it was more personally. Vegam shne banecha metu. Also, your two sons died, Chofni and Pinchas. And final blow, ve'aron ha'elokim, and ve'aron ha'elokim nilkacha, was taken. So he goes gradually for Eli. It is very interesting if you make a comparison between the time that the Navi tells us the story, that the Navi tells us the story, and the time that the person tells the story to Eli. So when the Navi tells us, first there is all the people that died, the Aaron was taken, and his sons died. As if we go from the greater loss to the lesser loss. And here he does the opposite. He goes from the lower loss to the greater loss to prepare him gradually to not make a shock. But he says, the entire nation, we failed at war. But that's not such a big deal. It's not the most catastrophic situation. You know what else happened? Even his sons died. That is more catastrophic because it's more personal. You know what is even worse than that? That his two sons dying is that the Aaron was taken. Eli lived in a complete world of pure holiness. There was no physicality for him. It didn't exist. His entire focus was on Hashem and on the Aaron. And that is what is going to make it unbearable for Eli. Pasuk Yutchet, Vayehi ki askiro et Aaron ha'elokim, and it was when he mentioned Aaron ha'elokim, Vayipol me'al ha'kiseh achoranit, and he fell from his chair backwards. Be'ad yad hashar, next to the gate. Vatishaver mafrakto, and his collarbone broke. Vayamot, and his spine, his backbone. His spine broke, he fell back, his backbone broke, and that's how he died, from the shock. Kizaken ha'ish, he was very old, the man was very old, vekaved, and he was heavy from the burden of guiding the people, of leading the people, of having that responsibility. Vehu shafat et Israel, but don't think that he did nothing. Hu shafat et Israel 40 shana. He judged the people for 40 years. And that is the end of Eli. Very tragic. The sadness of the story continues, and continues on an even more personal level to Eli. Eli is not aware of it because he has just died. But for us, as the readers, we see that the calamity that falls on Eli's family is not even finished. It continues into the next generation right away. And look what happens. Persecuted. V'chalato, and his daughter-in-law, Eshet Pinchas, the wife of Pinchas, Hara, she was pregnant. Lalat, and she was about to give birth. Here we have a very strange writing for giving birth. Usually to give birth is laledet. And here we don't have the daled, we have just lalat. And lalat makes it sound as if it's a type of a little bit of a screaming, of a screeching, of a yelala. A yelala is a screaming, as if she heard the news and she started screaming, and from the shock, she started giving birth before it's time. Vatishma, and that's what the pasuk is going to describe. Vatishma et hashmua, she heard the rumor, et ilakach Aron ha'elokim, that the Aron was taken. Umet chamia veisha, and that her father-in-law and her husband died. Vatichra, and she crouched. Vateled, and she gave birth. Ki ne'efchu alea tzirea, don't think that it was a natural birth, because her labor started, meaning it started against her will, not at the right time. So already we're in a difficult situation. She's giving birth prematurely. Uche'et muta, but the birth didn't go properly, and she had much difficulty. And we can understand, it means her contractions turned against her. Nehefchu from nafachu, it switched, it turned around, meaning it's going now against her. Instead of her having a happy event and giving birth to a child, now she's going to live a tragedy of her own. And she's about to die. There were women who were standing next to her, and they were the midwives, and they were helping her give birth, and they saw that she was on the verge of dying. So they spoke to her. They tried to appease her. They said, don't be afraid. You just gave birth to a baby boy. Velo anta. And she did not answer. Velo shata liba, and her heart was not quiet. Pasuk Chaf Aleph. And now she will just have the time to name the baby. How is she going to name a baby that was born in such a tragedy? Vatikra lanar, and she called the boy ikavod, no honor. Lemor, saying, Gala kavod mi Israel. The honor of Am Israel was taken into exile. Eli lakach Aron ha'elokim, because of the Aron that was taken. Ve'el chamia veisha, and for her husband and for her father-in-law, that both died. Vatomer, and she repeats, she says again, Gala kavod mi Israel. The honor of Am Israel was taken into exile. Ki nilkach Aron ha'elokim, because the Aron was taken. And here finishes the Perek. On this tragic note, I warned you before we started that this Perek was full of tragedy and calamity. It is one of the harshest. There are other ones that are very harsh after, but this is one of the most, it gives such a feeling of tragic, failing, destruction. That's what it is. No. This is the story.
She passed away.
She died giving birth. Since we finish with this, I will retrace our steps back into the Perek.
Shmuel's not even mentioned.
Thank you.
I'm just like trying to think, why would they have gone to like a big war without any guidance or any from the first general? And I mean, I've heard before that we used to do that now.
They used to do that,
Everything you
100%.
On the, like
The Hoshen, yes. And so will they do after. So will they continue to do after. This is completely astounding that they would go to war without taking any guidance from a spiritual authority.
Also before it talked about how Shmuel was, like how they saw Shmuel's Nevuah was true and they like believed him and like he was like their leader and then all of a sudden,
They just like bypass him
yeah.
completely. So in a way, this was Hashem's way to make the Nevuah materialize. On the other hand, did we need all this surrounding destruction to have Chofni and Pinchas be punished? When the son, if you remember, we said that Chofni and Pinchas, they were a Gilgal of Nadav and Avihu. When Nadav and Avihu died, we didn't have 30,000 people dying with them. They're the two ones who died in the Mishkan. No one else died. Why did it happen that all these people were punished? So that's you're saying it and you're like, I don't even know why it would make sense.
No,
But it
I
just
think
sounds-
you're talking about the period of Moshe and Aaron and the Chet Egel.
But how would it relate to here? What that's right. He killed also a lot of the people who I also don't remember the number, but it's true that a lot of people died after the Chet Egel as a punishment. But here, why would we assume it is a different generation? Why would we assume how?
Nadav and Avihu died because Aaron specifically didn't stop Chet Egel. It was like one of the punishments, no?
I never heard that, but it's
I'm
possible.
pretty sure that was like one of the things, but also the Chet Egel happened, and then right away they started building the Mishkan, and then there was
The inauguration.
Mishkan,
All right.
and that was the day that they died.
And like Mishkan. Yeah.
What,
On
But
the
that
day that
Mishkan
inauguration.
was
Yeah,
inaugurated, that's the day he died.
right.
but this is like a Google of those two. Right?
Right, but here we don't have an inauguration. Like what circumstances do Bnei Israel have for having to die? And Bnei Israel were punished in that generation
It doesn't say why.
for the Chet Egel. Here, we have no explicit explanation why Bnei Israel die. However, I would like to draw a few comparisons between our text and other stories.
30,000, you said? All at
30,000.
once, what was the physical reason?
The physical reason they went to war against the Philistines. There was a war against the Philistines and they fought and they lost, which is unusual because we're the best. We shouldn't lose. So the Perek finishes with the story of a woman giving birth and dying, giving birth. Do you remember any other story in the Torah that we have a woman giving birth and dying at birth? Well,
And it also says that it's a man from Binyamin that comes.
oh, good point.
Right?
I appreciate that you noticed.
Because that's the only description that it's given about the man.
Correct.
Like, as if he's an important person.
Correct.
But all we know is that he's from Shevet Binyamin.
Correct. That's true. And why do you make the connection with Binyamin? Because
So Rachel died when Binyamin.
while giving birth to Binyamin. Excellent. Okay. So there are a lot of similarities between the story that we have of the daughter-in-law of Eli.
Oh, and also Rachel names Binyamin Ben Aini, like, which is like, what?
That's the name.
It's like we're
I guess we rounded it off, but yeah. What? Yeah, right? And actually,
I listened to Rabbi Gordon giving, and he always mentions that. He's like, what a great start to life, Ben Aini. Like, kid needs therapy right away.
yeah.
He copied also. It's like,
Yeah, but it's not a common name.
right, but he can't, like, no honor.
But I mean, Binyamin is such a common name.
But Binyamin doesn't mean Ben.
Benjamin, but no, because Yaakov changed it.
Yeah.
So Yaakov transformed the pain into something positive. He said, no, Binyamin is from the right, from like the right is always positive. So it completely changed Rachel's outlook. So we covered all the similarities because they're very obvious. They really jump to the eye. We have a story of a woman who is in the middle of giving birth, and she knows that she's about to die, and she names the baby after the tragedy that caused her birth. So for Rachel, it's the pain of the birth that caused her death. And for this woman, it's the shock of the loss of war, the Aaron being taken. And we see that we repeat time and time again about the Aaron being taken.
I found that actually very beautiful, that the Aaron being taken was something that hurt the people so much. Like, I guess because you've mentioned that they were in such a low level beforehand, like it's like as if like they didn't even care about the Aaron, they didn't even go to the Mishkan, and now they're like all like in such terror because the Aaron was taken. I thought that was beautiful.
We're going to touch on that. Yes, but we said that they described as doing low things, but actually they were acting Lishem Shamayim, but not in the right way. So that puts it even more into light, that they were not just corrupt people taking advantage of their position. They were people who wanted to do something good, but it's transcribed as something negative for the crowd. And because it was not done in the right way, that's why they were punished. The same way that the sons of Aaron were punished, and were like, if they wanted to be so holy, why would they deserve a punishment altogether? They should be praised, but because they were not doing things in the right way. So we have similarities between the end story of that woman giving birth and Rachel. Now, if you remember the reason why Rachel died on the way home.
Something with idols.
Correct.
She lied or something.
So yes, so she stole. she did like by omission. When Yaakov was working for his father-in-law for 22 years, and when he wanted to go home, he didn't want to tell his father-in-law I'm going home. He said, if I tell him I'm going home, he's going to for sure try to stop me, because he knows that my presence among him is bringing him a lot of brachas. So he called Rachel and Leah to the field to speak to them privately with no listening ears. And he told them, we're going to leave at night. Just get ready. We're not going to tell anyone. And Lavan, he owned a type of idols that were called the trafim. And those idols, they were used to tell the future, to give information about people. Like you could ask them things and they had ways of giving answers. And Rachel took them with her. Rashi says, so there are different opinions. There are opinions that say she took it because she wanted her father to stop serving idols. And there are opinions that say she didn't want her father to know where they are by asking through the idols. Because the idols work. People served idols because
It was like
it's not that the idols had power, but people gave it power. They could achieve the results that they wanted with it. The debate was not whether the idols work or not. The debate is whether you believe in the idol or not. By extension, you can serve the idols, you can do the work that's related to the idol, but the Avodah Zarah is something that is real. So you could do dark magic through Avodah Zarah. It exists.
So like in Mitzrayim.
Like in Mitzrayim, 100%, the magicians, 100%. It's taken from the side of the Tumah. At the end, yeah. So she took it and she hid it. And then Lavan came to look for them. He couldn't find them. He said to Yaakov, do you have them? He said, no, the person who stole them will die. I'm cursing them without knowing that Rachel had them. So Rachel died because of the trafim. Now here in our Perek, we have something that is very disturbing. If you look back, there's a key pasuk in the beginning of the Perek that shows us the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem lies in Pasuk Gimel. Pasuk Gimel, I will reread it. The people came to the camp, and the elders of Israel said, Lama negafanu Hashem hayom lifnei Pelishtim? Why did Hashem hit us in front of the Pelishtim? What should we do? Nikcha elenu mishilo et Aaron berit Hashem. This is still not the heart of the problem. We'll take to us the Aaron from Shiloh. Great. Now listen well. It will come among us. It will save us from our enemies. Who is going to save us?
Yeah.
The Aaron.
Like, Hashem Barak.
Instead of Hashem there. As if the Aaron itself has power to do things. The Aaron itself holds the power. Now listen to what the Pelishtim say when they hear that the Aaron is in the Machane, in the camp. Exactly. Pasuk Zayin. Vayirvu Pelishtim. The Pelishtim feared. Ki amru, because they said, Ba Elokim el Machane. Their God came. Our God doesn't come anywhere. Our God is everywhere. What does it mean their God came? They saw the Aaron as our God. This is we have our statue. We're going to see next Perek. They have their statue. This is their God. And Bnei Israel go to war the second time with full confidence that because the Aaron is with them, they're going to be saved.
But how's it different than going to the hotel, going to the OL, using a means to get to God through a physical person or space or place, you know what I mean? Like people, isn't that within Judaism?
I've been thinking about it for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, but you're writing to the Rebbe, you're praying to. Right, but why do people go to, there is a power in being there, right? Otherwise you just pray to God anywhere. You do, but I'm saying there is something else.
Because there's a specific revelation of the Shekhinah that is there, that is not elsewhere. Like, bottom line is that there's less concealment at the Ayam than there is in other places. A person can pray to Hashem anywhere, but when a person goes to the Ayam, they are at a place where there's less concealment. And because there's less concealment, there's an ease of the prayers to reach Hashem. It's just, and as a matter of fact, it says that the Ayal is the closest we have to the base of Mikdash.
Where does it say?
It says in the Sifra.
Base Rabbeinu Shebabad.
Right? So
Wait, it's the 770, mind you. According to base Rabbeinu Shebabad,
it's in 7 times, so we should definitely. Should go to the Ayal.
100%. So the point.
They're saying the Aaron is God. They're not saying we're going to.
The Pelishtim are saying that. Yes, Shayal, you're right. The Pelishtim are saying the Aaron is God. Bnei Israel say the Aaron is going to save us. What is going to save them? What is going to save them is Hashem's presence that rests on the Aaron. As the Aaron is described, the first time we mention the Aaron in the Perek, it says, Aaron berit Hashem, Tzevakot, Yoshev HaKeruvim. The Aaron of the covenant of Hashem, who dwells among the Keruvim. That is the description of the Aaron. If you want the full ID of the Aaron, that is the full ID. First name, middle name, last name. The Aaron of the covenant of Hashem who dwells among the Keruvim. There's no Aaron without Hashem. And it's always described as Aaron Berit Hashem. But it's always the Aaron as if the Aaron is active on its own. He has a power on its own. And that's where the mistake of Bnei Israel is. That they take the Aaron without doing any introspection. When we have, in Sefer Yoshua, we have a story of Bnei Israel losing a war. We are right after Yericho. Yericho is, if you want to say, the most spectacular battle that Bnei Israel have in Eretz Israel. Is the first one and the most spectacular one. Hashem wanted to really make like the fireworks in Canaan. Say, look, Bnei Israel are coming. Psh, no chance for anybody. And there was a rule that you're not allowed to take any of the booty of the loot of Yericho. Usually part of going to war is taking the possessions of the city that you conquered. But for Yericho, it was different. For Yericho, we were not allowed to touch anything that they owned. It was really completely tameh. Now what happens is that everybody knew that rule. What happened? They go to the following war with the bracha of Hashem, and they lose the war right away without missing a beat. Yoshua asked in the Choshen, he says, what's going on? Who sinned? Someone must have sinned. If not, we wouldn't deserve to lose a war. Yeah, but Israel are asking, did we sin? What happened? They ask, why did Hashem hit us? But they don't dwell on that thought. In the same sentence, they say, we're going to take the Aaron, it's going to save us. Not even pausing for a second. That's right away. The problem is not with me, it's them. I don't have an issue. If Hashem made us lose the war, it's because we didn't do enough. We didn't bring enough Hashem into the war. Okay, let's bring that one. It's going to be great. That's not,
as you said at the beginning, they went into war because they were thinking that because Shmuel did them for so many years, now they're spiritually good enough to go to the war. They were
so
very
that's
confident.
even, exactly. So it's even worse because when you have the confidence, you don't even question yourself. So Bnei Israel not questioning themselves, not doing any introspection, not doing one step of teshuvah. That's what leads them to their destruction. In a sense, we see that with Rachel, the commentaries say that with Rachel, there is that notion also that she took the teraphim, she took the idols of her father, as if the idols had any power. If Hashem wanted to hide the message from her father, he would have hid it from him. She didn't have to worry. She didn't have to take the idols to withhold information. And that is possibly one of the reasons that she passed away. This is some commentaries. I'm not like Rachel is still like it's still Rachel Imenu. We don't want to think any less of her because the nuances are very, very, very fine. I don't want us to leave the class saying, oh, so today we learned that Rachel failed in her belief in Hashem. That's why she was punished, just like when Israel died at war. However, we do see some parallels between the stories, being the story here and the story of Rachel. The mention of the similarity is it's too obvious and too explicit for us to overlook.
Yeah, but here the main point of the Perek is not that the wife of Pinchas died and
No. It brings us back to that story. It reminds us of the story. That's why I mention it, because it reminds us of that story so strong that we say the similarity must go stronger. However, talk about the descendants of Rachel. You said the man that comes, he's from Binyamin. And the Midrash wonders, who is that man that came? So there is a beautiful, beautiful Midrash. And I'll tell you something about it. So there's a beautiful Midrash that explains that man actually, that man from Binyamin, we're going to meet him in the following prakim. And it's going to be Shaul. Shaul is going to be the first king. And he is from Shevet Binyamin. So here we see, Shaul, where is he run? Why is he the one running? Where is he coming from? Why did he decide to run back to Shiloh? Why didn't he go home to tell his family that he's fine, but everybody died? So the Midrash says that at the battlefield, who was the person that was powerful enough to take the Aaron? Obviously, all Bnei Israel came to protect the Aaron. Chofni and Pinchas went with the intent, the purpose of protecting it. Obviously, they didn't let it go without a fight. So who was it among the Pelishtim that was so strong that could keep a fight against so many people who were ready to die for the Aaron? And Goliath is the man. Goliath is a giant.
But that is
So yes, Sarah. Goliath and David will fight in about 12 prakim.
Goliath is related to David.
Yes.
It's
So
organized.
but for the moment we didn't see David at all. So for the moment we didn't see David at all. He's not part of the story yet. So Goliath is like this. Yeah, go.
No, I don't know.
Okay. So I'm sure you do, but it's okay. Goliath, he's a giant that is from the Philistine. He has 3 brothers who are also giants. So there are 4 brothers who are giants. Who are those giants? They are the grandchildren of Orpah. Orpah was the sister of someone who is much more famous, and her name is Ruth. When we talk about Ruth, she had a sister who, there were two sisters married to two brothers. And when their husbands died, and their mother-in-law wanted to go back to Eretz Israel, and their mother-in-law Naomi wanted to go back to Eretz Israel, they both went with her. They said, "You are mother-in-law, you are our family, technically. We're going to go with you." And when Naomi is about to enter Eretz Israel, she turns around and she says, "Really, you don't have to do this. Why would you put yourself? I'm going to go and be a beggar. I have nothing left to myself. I don't have any dignity left to me. I'm going back to nothing. Why would you do this to yourself? You're princesses, go back home. You'll be treated like royalty." And that's where there's a split. Ruth will say, "I'm going with you." And Oprah will say, "You know what? You're right. I'm just going to go back home," which is completely understandable. Oprah goes back home, and the Midrash says that she cried 4 tears. She shed 4 tears when she separated from Naomi. And for her 4 tears, she merited to have 4 sons who will be giants and help her people. And one of those sons will be Goliath. Goliath is a giant among the Philistines. He's a massive warrior. And he's the one who takes the Aaron. Shaul is at the battlefield. He sees that the Aaron is going, and he runs. He takes the luchot out of the Aaron. So inside the Aaron, there was the luchot, the tablets of the 10 Commandments. They were inside the luchot. So you want to take the Aaron? I can't. Apparently, I can't fight back with you. But he stole the luchot. He took the luchot out. And he ran the entire way from the battlefield until Shiloh to bring them back to the Mishkan. And that's why he runs.
So I think it's not only that as a comfort,
He wanted to, but he died.
The broken luchot were also in the right? Both, like the broken and.
Yeah. Did he take the 4? Did he take the 2? I'm not 100% sure. But the fact is that he ran from the luchot to bring it back to the Mishkan.
And we don't know where it is today, right?
No, because at the end of the first Beis Hamikdash, the king of Israel knew that the Beis Hamikdash was going to get destroyed, and he didn't want the Aaron to be taken together with all the other possessions of the Beis Hamikdash. So when Shlomo built the Beis Hamikdash, he built a hiding place for the Aaron. So the king put it in the hiding place that no one knows where it is.
Probably in the sites of the Bismillah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like completely underground. So it's somewhere there, but it was never discovered. And as a matter of fact, I'll not say the matter of fact, but I would say that so it would the Aaron of the first Beis Hamikdash was never discovered. But now we have a situation that we have a Mishkan in Shiloh that has no Aaron. How is a Mishkan going to be without the Aaron?
And where the luchot is gonna.
Where are they going to be? Bichlal? That we don't know. It's an enigma that I never resolved.
But let's say that the Aaron is like the symbol of like the dwelling of Hashem in the Mishkan.
No, I
Right.
understand. but the
Right, no,
luchot
but
is
she's saying
so
like-
holy,
but
like where the.
Because they're so holy, obviously they were inside the holiest place of the Mishkan. And now where are they going to put it? Like double
For the
wrapped?
people, no, I mean, for the people, they're allowed to do korbanos on the Mizbeach because the Shekhinah of Hashem is here because of the Aaron.
Right,
So if there's no Aaron, are they allowed to do like korbanot? Are they allowed to continue with the Mishkan?
the Mishkan is not whole.
The Shekhinah is not there.
The Mishkan is not whole. And she said, the daughter-in-law said, Gala Kavod Yisrael, the honor of Am Yisrael has been exiled.
How many
And if
years
you talk,
between
one
them
second,
entering the
sorry,
land?
sorry, 1 second.
Yeah.
If you talk about the exile, are the Jewish people now going to be exiled? Because the Aaron was destroyed? Because the Aaron was taken? Are the Jewish people now going to follow the Aaron by the Philistines? What is going to happen? Ultimately, but now at this point, what decision are the Jewish people going to make? The Aaron is gone. Where do they stand? What does it make of them? Where should they go? Should they continue the service in the Mishkan? They're in a situation that they never confronted before. What?
Also, who's going to continue?
And who is going to continue? You're saying because Eli died and his two sons died. Excellent point. Excellent question. I will address that now. We see that Pinchas' wife was having a baby. It was not her first child. She had other children, and Chofni and Pinchas, they both had children before they died. They're not mentioned until now. They will be mentioned, the sons of Pinchas will be mentioned after. So they did have children that would take over. So that, if that answers your question. To mention something else, is that there is a major event that happened in this Perek that is not mentioned. And is completely unfathomable that such a big event will not be even mentioned with even a word, not half a line. So I said several times, but what will happen with the service in the Mishkan without the Aaron? The question, unfortunately, did not stand. Because at the time of that war, the Mishkan itself was also destroyed. There was the destruction of the Mishkan of Shiloh that happened at that time. From then on, Eli didn't know. Maybe it happened after, but maybe it happened after he died, that the war was not finished. After that time, the Mishkan will not be in Shiloh anymore. But very, very interestingly, there is not one mention, one word of the Mishkan being destroyed in the entire Sefer. We don't see that the Mishkan was destroyed. It's going to just casually come up that the Mishkan switched places. It moved. And we're going to casually see that the Mishkan from now on is in Nov. We're going to hear a story of David going to the Mishkan in the city of Nov. Who has heard of Nov until then? No one. It's just like very in passing. Until we have a book in the later Nevi'im, in Yirmiyahu, that Yirmiyahu, when he speaks to the people, and he tells them Hashem will destroy the Beis HaMikdash, and people don't believe him. They say Hashem will never destroy the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash is too central to us that Hashem will destroy it. The presence of Hashem is in the Beis HaMikdash. Hashem is the Beis HaMikdash. Does it ring a bell? Like they said, the Aaron, if we bring it, of course it will not be taken, of course it will not be destroyed, of course nothing will happen, because the Aaron is Hashem. And Yirmiyah tells them the word of Hashem, just like I destroyed Shiloh, I will destroy the Beis HaMikdash. And it is only from there, 400 years later, that something like that, about 400 years later, that we have a record that Shiloh was destroyed. The entire Nevi'im, no record. Extremely, it's very, very puzzling. Massive event, not a mention. As you pointed also, Shmuel is not mentioned in one word. Besides for the first opening sentence, we don't have a word of Shmuel in the whole Perek.
There was Machleka that is not even part of the Perek.
Exactly. He's not part of the storyline. They did not address him. They did not address him. They didn't take his opinion. They didn't ask him anything. They act with we're doing what we think is right without asking Hashem for Hashem's guidance. Now, regarding, you asked about the Ohel, how all these things that we do, that we give the place or we give things importance. So the idea is that it is not the item itself that has the power. It's not the dollar itself that has the power. It's the bracha that the Rebbe gave the dollar with that has the power. The dollar itself, it's a bill. It is not the holder of the power. The power is the bracha that the Rebbe associated.
They write the name, the date, and they write the bracha they got on the same day.
Yeah, that's right. Papa has that on his dollars. He has the date and the words that the Rebbe said at the time. Yeah. Yeah. So it is the bracha that is associated with it. Going to the Ohel is, so to daven to tzaddikim, to daven for us, it is something that we're going to see in a few prakim. So very interestingly, we see here Bnei Israel are in such a state of failure. In Perek Zayin, we're going to see that Bnei Israel again are facing a war against the Pelishtim, but they're going to be after a deep transformation from Shmuel. Shmuel is going to help them go through a deep process of teshuvah, and they're going to be facing an exact same situation. There's the Pelishtim that are organizing themselves to fight them, and Bnei Israel turn to Shmuel and they say, Shmuel, you please daven for us so that Hashem will save us. And they use a very similar wording to the words that they used about the Aaron, but they say, Hashem Yoshienu, and Hashem will save us. So here we see that they went through a full circle of teshuvah because they're in the same situation and they act differently. So this is not the end. All right.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Can I say that I think